Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Venus Blueprint. Very excited to talk about Love is Blind. I've been going couple per couple, and I want to focus and highlight Jimmy and Chelsea and talk about how Chelsea has trapped herself into an emotionally abusive situation with Jimmy. Chelsea kind of cheating the game with Love is Blind. Love is Blind is about going on a show and seeking marriage, creating connections on an emotional and mental basis with a person before looks. But I really feel like Chelsea was trying to play a game. And quite often, you see the men and women get lost in the game of winning Love is Blind. Not necessarily winning a partner, even though that's a part of it, but winning the game of Love is Blind because you can have so much fame and opportunities by getting further on the show. Is this initially why Chelsea cheated the game? I'm not quite sure, but she definitely cheated the game. This happens when her and Jimmy are having a conversation. She says that people have often told her that she looks like Megan Fox. Now, the reason that this is a setup for her own failure is because she has now ignited within Jimmy an expectation, but also he is less focused on the emotional bond, and so is she. They're less focused on the emotional bond, they're more focused on the physical bond. Jimmy is excited about the possibility of being with somebody who looks like Megan Fox. And many people on the internet are debating whether she looks like Megan Fox or not. That's actually least of the issue. Honestly, in some ways, if you look at a certain angle, she does kind of look like Megan Fox, in my opinion. The other thing that people don't realize is that in our superficial celebrity based world, she may not seem to be exactly a duplicate of Megan Fox, but in certain sectors and groups of people, she could be considered the hot girl of the group. A lot of people aren't farsighted enough to consider that. So I don't think that she's lying about the fact that some people might think that she looks like Megan Fox. The issue is that she brought physical, the whole need of Love is Blind to have you create an emotional connection gets thrown under the bus. So now they have more of a physical connection because Jimmy's excited about how she looks like. So you can see how this created a deterrent from them actually connecting emotionally. This is the moment where I want to bring in Trevor, whom I think is a better option for Chelsea. Do I think that Trevor still has some issues? Yes, I think that Trevor, on a relationship basis, is hiding behind his jokes. But on an emotional basis, Trevor and Chelsea seem to be more in sync. And the way that Trevor was courting her was actually matching that hesitancy for her to go too deep. She doesn't really like to go too deep. Now, there's also a very big difference between Chelsea having the choice of Jimmy versus Trevor. Chelsea chased Jimmy by playing this competition game of looks, where Trevor actually was the one, I would say, wooing Chelsea with his jokes. In one situation, she is trying to convince the guy. In the other situation, the guy is trying to impress her. She seemed to choose the guy that she wants to convince, which shows us that Chelsea does have some insecurity issues and is maybe trying to prove to herself that she is the first pick, but in a lot of ways, she trapped herself initially by creating a bond with somebody that's not emotionally supportive of her. In fact, I don't even think she knows how emotional supportive Jimmy can really be. Granted, she did express to Jimmy that she was married before, right? And he was hesitant about that. Jimmy was also very hesitant when Jessica told him about her child. And it seems to me like Jimmy chose the less of the two, and which was more of a burden to him. This shows you that Jimmy is not really trying to be committed or to be very serious. He's looking for the easiest option. Most of the conversation between Chelsea and Jimmy and her mistakes was about how comfortable Jimmy felt about it. And that is one of the biggest signs that you're getting yourself trapped into an emotionally abusive situation when it's all about the comfort of the other person more than it is about your own security and emotional compatibility. Okay, so now we get to the ultimate moment where Chelsea chooses between the two guys and she chooses Jimmy. Now, when she speaks with Trevor, one of the most significant things that Trevor says that I hope all women around the world are listening to is, why is it that you would choose somebody who's not 100% for you? Or better yet, why is it that you wouldn't choose the one that is 100% for you? To the moment when Jimmy and Chelsea meet. Because when Jimmy and Chelsea meet, we know that Jimmy, we could see it written all over his face, that he had an expectation that Chelsea was going to look like Megan Fox, and he didn't get that expectation. So, another question that we could actually ask ourselves is, if Jimmy did not have the preemptive idea, right, that Chelsea would look like Megan Fox, would he be as disappointed? This can create within somebody an obsessive obsession, right? Because now Jimmy is not just meeting somebody he's dating, he's meeting the person he proposed to. And this can create a lot of anxiety and weight in somebody when they realize, oh my gosh, did I make the wrong choice? So the question also is Jimmy now obsessing over looks because of the disappointment that he has with Chelsea? So that helps us to understand Jimmy even more when he's at the party and he doesn't have he can't control himself because everybody is drinking and they're having fun. And so when he walks up to Chelsea and he says AD is stacked, this is telling us that he might be one, either a guy who always was obsessed with looks, similar to Clay, or two, he's obsessed with looks now due to his disappointment, and he is letting loose his truths in this inebriated state in front of Chelsea. So, this is where I say Chelsea trapped herself in this emotionally manipulative and abusive situation. Because a big part of this is that she initiated an expectation within Jimmy that she couldn't really uphold to. However, Jimmy coming up to Chelsea and saying AD is stacked also does give us an idea of the compulsion and impulsiveness of Jimmy to not be truthful and to hold things in until he's inebriated. Because truly, who would go up to the person that they're courting, that they're dating, that they're about to be married, and start talking about somebody else's body in a sexually seductive way? Right? When you talk about somebody being stacked, you're not just giving them a compliment. You're talking about a body part, you're talking about their body and how hot it is, which also implies sexual favor and interest. And in any most monogamous situations, commenting on somebody's sexual appeal, right, to the person that you're supposed to be with is not going to go off well. So what ends up happening is that Chelsea now is in a very uncomfortable position. Does she yell at him and smack him in the face? That's probably what I would do as a Venus and Aries. Or does she walk away? Does she pretend that it doesn't exist? Well, what Chelsea chooses to do is to try to, in her way, make light of the situation and almost overexpose him to everyone else. And so she says in a big and grandiose way, okay, oh, well, yeah, AD is stacked, right? And so she calls AD's attention to her body. And Chelsea almost semi whistleblows, exposes Jimmy for the douchebag that he is over that comment. But the issue is that it backfires on Chelsea because AD is absolutely okay with the comment. And, well, Jimmy is embarrassed by what Chelsea has just done. And this is also a very big sign of somebody who can tend to be emotionally abusive, whether they realize it or not. They are being emotionally abusive because Jimmy does not take responsibility for the fact that he said that comment and how it would affect the person that you're with in the first place. He mainly wants to control the fact of what Chelsea did in her reaction to him. What I would ask Jimmy, what is it that you would have preferred for Chelsea to do after you say a comment like what you did? Right? With somebody who's emotionally abusive, they want to control how it is that you react and respond to things for fear of their own embarrassment. So Jimmy had no consideration of how he was making Chelsea feel, right? Insecure, embarrassed by him commenting on AD, but he absolutely cared about his own feelings and was trying to protect his own embarrassment. Again, when somebody is tends to be emotionally abusive, they mainly think about themselves and protect themselves. So this leads for Jimmy to go up to AD and proceed to apologize because he's also probably thinking, AD now might be embarrassed like I am. And so he's apologizing, but he also is quite obviously taking the opportunity to converse with AD, get to know her, and also semi flirt. Meanwhile, Chelsea at the party is just kind of like a satellite navigating around them and basically feeling insecure, ignored, and neglected. This is the sign of somebody who is in an emotionally abusive situation. Does Chelsea have insecurity issues? Yes. Did Chelsea trap herself in this situation with this man? Yes. But it just goes to show that he still could have acted in a different way, but he showed his colors in that he neglected her from what they showed us on this episode. Anytime that we saw Jimmy and Chelsea together during the beach party, Jimmy was not giving Chelsea any emotional support and recognition. Consider when he approached Chelsea with the other ladies. He wanted to know about their choices, their picks, and he even told Chelsea, "Oh, you stay out of this." In probably a friendly way, but in a lot of ways it was emotionally neglectful and abusive. Maybe if him and Chelsea were in sync, it would not have been a big deal. But because of what just went down with him, AD, and her, and then this preceding that, it seemed to me like Jimmy was completely emotionally abusing Chelsea in this situation. Which leads to the final scene when Chelsea confronts Jimmy about how she felt about his comment about AD's body. And Jimmy does not acknowledge at all during this conversation how he affected Chelsea. He is naturally on defensive because people who are in emotionally abusive types, they will defend themselves before they care about how they affected the other person. So Chelsea is continuously trying to explain him through her frustration and rage. Granted, again, she already is an insecure type, especially with Jimmy. He brings out the insecurity, but again, she set herself up to be in the situation. But you can see that on Jimmy's part of it, he does not impress us with a version of himself where he can show up for her in the proper way. He is completely in denial, completely pushing her away, and is also completely ignorant to how and what he has done to affect her in the way that she's acting. She even says, you ignore me. I was right by you, and you didn't acknowledge me. I was right there when you were with AD, and he says you were nowhere near us. So he gaslights her as well. So this is ultimately the conclusion that I feel with Chelsea and Jimmy, and I'm sure many of you see it as well, that they do not have an emotional connection because of the cheating that happened with the game. Chelsea choosing to bring out the physical between them kind of neglected their need to create a true emotional bond that would help them be able to support each other when there's friction, or at least understand each other. They have a complete lack of understanding of each other, and that's because they didn't do the work that they were actually supposed to do in the pods. So that is my take on Chelsea and Jimmy for Love is Blind season 6. And let me know what you guys thought about it, and I think I'm going to do a couple more before our next viewing of the next 3 episodes. See you in the next video.